You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is the Midnight Mystery.
I remember the day the world changed. It was a Tuesday, mundane in every aspect until the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with the silhouettes of colossal beings, titans they were soon called. I watched from my living room window, the coffee in my hand forgotten, as chaos erupted in the streets. Cars screeched to halts, people ran screaming, and all the while those titans stood motionless, as if surveying their new domain. The news was frantic, a cacophony of theories, warnings, and escalating panic. Then, as suddenly as it had erupted, silence fell. The broadcast stopped, the internet flickered out, and the world outside my door became a silent, ominous void. In those first hours, I was paralyzed by fear and disbelief. How could such creatures exist? Were they the harbingers of our end? The questions spun in my mind, unanswered. As night fell, the reality of my situation sank in. I was alone, isolated in my own home, a fragile sanctuary in a world that had suddenly become alien and threatening. The following days blurred into a routine dictated by survival. I rationed my food, water, and power, knowing that my supplies were finite and the outside world was now a place of unknown dangers. I covered the windows, barricaded the doors, and moved in silence, as if the titans could hear me, could see me cowering in my own home. Venturing outside became a necessity dictated by dwindling supplies. I waited for the cover of night, moving stealthily through the shadows of the titans. Their presence was overwhelming, a constant reminder of our new reality. They seemed indifferent to me, to us, as if we were ants scurrying beneath their notice. Yet, the fear of drawing their attention kept me cautious, always looking over my shoulder, always listening for the sound of their impossibly large footsteps. The world outside was a ghost town, cars abandoned mid-escape, doors ajar, signs of life interrupted. I looted what I could from nearby stores, the eerie silence punctuated by the distant sounds of collapse and destruction, a haunting soundtrack to my scavenging. One evening, as I navigated back to my sanctuary, I found a radio, its batteries nearly dead. I brought it back, a sliver of hope in my pocket. To my astonishment, it crackled to life, a voice breaking through the static, speaking of a safe haven for survivors. The message was looped, the details scant, but it was a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of solitude pressing down on me. The radio's message played over in my mind. Was it a call to salvation, or a siren's song leading to further despair? The uncertainty was a gnawing ache, but the hope it offered was a potent drug. The titans, for all their imposing silence, had become a constant in my life, a danger I had learned to navigate. But the human element, the unknown intentions of those broadcasting the message, that was a variable I was unsure how to calculate. Yet as the days passed and my supplies dwindled once more, the choice was made for me. I would set out at dawn, the radio tucked into my bag, its message a mantra in my mind. I was no longer a mere survivor. I was a seeker, a man on a quest not just for safety, but for the remnants of humanity in a world overshadowed by titans. The world beyond my barricaded door was more alien than I remembered. Buildings, once symbols of human ingenuity and perseverance, now stood as hollowed-out shells, testament to our fragility in the face of the titans. The air was thick with an unspoken dread, a palpable tension that clung to the ruins of our civilization. Each step I took on the deserted streets was a step into the unknown, a dance with shadows both literal and metaphorical. My first expedition was born of necessity, a desperate quest for sustenance and supplies. The local grocery store, once a place of mundane routine, had transformed into a beacon of hope amidst the desolation. I moved with caution, aware of the omnipresent threat of the titans. Their sheer size made them easy to avoid in theory, but their unpredictability was a constant danger. I had seen them move, their actions devoid of any discernible pattern or purpose, as if they were guided by whims we could not comprehend. I entered the store, my heart pounding in my chest, not from exertion, but from the fear of what might lurk within. The shelves were largely picked clean, a visual echo of the panic that had swept through the city in the Titan's wake. Yet, I found enough to sustain me, canned goods, bottled water, things that would last. The silence in the store was oppressive, a stark reminder that I was alone in a world that no longer belonged to us. As I made my way back, laden with my meager haul, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I scanned the horizon, expecting at any moment to lock eyes with a titan, but there was nothing. The journey back was a blur of adrenaline-fueled vigilance. With each step towards the safety of my home, the weight of isolation bore down on me, a relentless reminder of what I had lost, of what we all had lost. The radio broadcast, a thread of hope in the enveloping darkness, became my lifeline. I clung to the promise of a safe haven, a place where survivors could find solace in each other's company, where the shadow of the titans might be a bit less suffocating. Yet doubts gnawed at me. In a world upended, trust was a luxury, and hope could easily lead to despair. Despite the risks, my forays into the outside world became more frequent. Each expedition was a calculated risk, a balance between the need for supplies and the ever-present danger of the titans. I became adept at moving unseen, using the rubble and the ruins as cover, always mindful of the giants that loomed just beyond my line of sight. On one such outing, I encountered another survivor. The moment was fleeting, a shared glance of understanding and fear before we retreated into our respective shadows. The encounter was a stark reminder of the human cost of this catastrophe, of the isolation that had become our shared reality. Yet, it also kindled a spark of defiance within me. We were still here, still fighting, still surviving. In the face of the titans, in the shadow of their indifference, we persisted. This realization, this refusal to succumb to despair, propelled me forward. The safe haven, once a distant dream, now became a goal. A destination that promised more than just survival. It promised a return to something resembling life, a community of souls united by shared loss, and a shared desire to reclaim our place in the world. The days melted into each other, each one a mirror of the last, until the moment I decided to venture beyond the familiar ruins of my neighborhood. With the radio's promise of a haven fueling my determination, I found myself drawn into the heart of the city, where the shadows of the titans loomed larger, and the silence was replaced by the occasional terrifying sound of their movements. I learned to navigate this new world with a mix of awe and horror. The awe was for the sheer scale of the titans, creatures so vast that buildings crumbled beneath their feet like sandcastles before the tide. The horror was for the destruction they wrought without malice or intent, simply by existing in a world too small to contain them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood, I found myself in what had once been a bustling marketplace. Now it was a graveyard of aspirations, dreams laid waste by the Titan's arrival. It was there I encountered another survivor, a woman named Clara, her eyes as hard as flint but not without a spark of life. Clara taught me the true meaning of survival. It wasn't just about scavenging and hiding, it was about fighting for every breath, every heartbeat. She had been tracking the movements of a particular titan, one that had strayed from the rest, its behavior erratic, unpredictable. She believed it might be injured, a theory that offered a terrifying opportunity. If we could get close enough to study it, we might learn something vital about these beings. Driven by a mix of desperation and the human need to understand our oppressors, we planned our approach under the cover of darkness. The streets we traversed were a labyrinth of destruction, each turn revealing new horrors. Bodies abandoned in their flight, silent screams etched onto their faces. As we neared the Titan, the air grew thick, charged with a palpable tension. The sheer wall of its flesh loomed before us, a monument to our insignificance. Clara signaled for silence, her gaze fixed on the giant before us. It was then that I felt it, a vibration through the soles of my shoes, a whisper of movement that crescendoed into a rumble. The Titan was moving. Panic surged, a primal instinct to flee, but Clara's hand on my arm was grounding. We were witnesses to a moment few had survived, the slow, ponderous movement of a Titan. Its leg rose, a pillar of flesh and sinew blocking out the stars, then descended with a force that sent shockwaves through the ground. We should have retreated then, but curiosity, that most human of flaws, held us captive. It was our downfall. The Titan's head turned, its eyes, vast pools of unblinking darkness, fixed on our hiding spot. Time slowed, my heartbeat thundering in my ears, a counterpoint to the Titan's breath, a gust of wind that smelled of earth and blood. Then chaos. Clara pulled me back, her voice a distant echo, as the world erupted. The Titan had spotted us, its interest piqued by the insects daring to observe it. We ran, dodging falling debris, the ground trembling with each step the Titan took. Our escape was a blur of adrenaline and fear. We lost it, or it lost interest. I'm not sure which. When we finally stopped, gasping for breath in the shadow of a collapsed building, the night was silent once more. Clara and I shared a look, a mix of relief and the dawning realization of how close we had come to death. That night, I learned the true horror of our new world. It wasn't just the Titans themselves, but the realization of our own fragility, the ease with which we could be extinguished. Yet in that horror, there was a perverse form of beauty, the resilience to stand in the face of such monstrous indifference and choose to fight, to survive. The experience bonded Clara and me, not just as survivors, but as warriors in a battle for our very existence. We parted ways with a promise to meet again, to continue our dance with the giants, armed with the knowledge that in this new world, horror and beauty were two sides of the same coin. After my harrowing encounter with the Titan, the world seemed to pulse with a malevolent life of its own. The ruins of the city whispered tales of despair, and the shadows seemed to stretch towards me, grasping with fingers made of darkness. But within me, a flame of resolve had been kindled by Clara's courage. The path to the safe haven was fraught with danger, yet it was a beacon that called to me through the night. The journey was a testament to the apocalypse that had befallen us. Buildings, once symbols of human achievement, now lay in ruin, their skeletal remains a playground for the shadows. The air was thick with a silence that screamed, punctured only by the distant, mournful wails of the Titans. I moved cautiously, avoiding the open streets where the Titans roamed, their sheer size turning them into unwitting agents of destruction. As I navigated through the city's labyrinth, the thin veneer of civilization I had clung to began to peel away, revealing a primal instinct for survival that I had never known existed within me. Each step forward was a victory against the fear that sought to paralyze me, each breath a defiance of the death that hung over the world like a shroud. It wasn't long before I encountered others, survivors, each a mirror reflecting the same blend of hope and desperation that drove me. We formed a ragtag band, bound by the shared goal of reaching the haven. Among them was Mara, a young woman whose spirit seemed unbroken by the world's collapse. Her determination was infectious, and under her unofficial leadership we pressed on, a flicker of humanity moving through the darkness. Our journey was marked by moments of terror and beauty. We once found ourselves trapped in an abandoned building as a Titan passed, the structure groaning under the pressure of the creature's proximity. We huddled together in silence, barely daring to breathe as the Titan's shadow enveloped us, a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow the very concept of hope. Yet when it passed, and the light returned, it felt like a rebirth, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, light could find a way. But this world was not content with letting us pass without exacting its toll. One night, we were ambushed by what we first thought were other survivors. Desperation had turned them into something else, something barely human. They attacked with a ferocity that spoke of madness, driven by the belief that the Titans were gods, sent to purge the unworthy. The battle was brutal, a dance of violence that left us shaken, our number diminished but our resolve hardened. Mara was injured during the skirmish, a wound that seemed minor at first, but quickly proved to be anything but. In this new world, even the smallest cut could be a death sentence. We watched over her, a vigil marked by whispered prayers to deities we no longer believed in, hoping for a miracle that never came. When she passed, it was a silent affair, her last breath a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all our lost hopes. We buried her among the ruins, a small act of defiance against the chaos that sought to claim us. Her grave was marked with a piece of rubble, upon which we etched her name. It was a monument not just to her, but to all of us, a testament to our struggle, our pain, and our unwavering will to survive. With heavy hearts, we continued our journey, the haven no longer just a destination but a promise that Mara's death would not be in vain, that her spirit would guide us through the darkest hours. The closer we got to the haven, the more the world seemed to push back, as if it sensed our burgeoning hope and sought to crush it. The Titans became a constant shadow, their presence a reminder of our fragility. But we pressed on, driven by the memory of those we had lost, by the hope of a future where humanity could rise from the ashes of its own despair. The horizon teased us with the promise of safety, the haven a beacon in the relentless darkness that had enveloped the world. Each step towards it was laden with the weight of our journey, our losses, and the thin shred of hope that had kept us moving through the desolate landscape. The city's ruins lay behind us, a testament to the cataclysm that had reshaped our existence. Ahead salvation, or so we believed. As we neared the haven, the environment began to change. The oppressive presence of the Titans receded, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed almost unnatural after the constant threat of annihilation. It was as if we were moving through a bubble, an oasis untouched by the chaos that reigned beyond its unseen borders. The entrance to the haven was unassuming, a mere gap in the remnants of what once had been a fortified wall. We entered with bated breath, the anticipation of safety mingling with the unease that had become our constant companion. What we found within was not the sanctuary we had envisioned. The haven was alive, yes, but not with the bustling activity of survivors banding together to rebuild amidst the apocalypse. Instead, it throbbed with a palpable sense of dread, the air thick with the stench of decay. Buildings that had appeared intact from a distance were revealed to be facades, their interiors gutted, filled with the remnants of those who had come before us, seeking refuge and finding only despair. It dawned on us then, with a horror that clutched at our throats, that the haven was a trap, a lure used to draw in survivors not to save them, but to use them. The realization hit me like a physical blow, sending a ripple of panic through our ranks. We were not alone. From the shadows emerged figures, their movements too deliberate to be human. They were the remnants of survivors, twisted by some unspeakable horror into something other, something that existed between life and death. Their eyes, devoid of sanity, fixed on us with a hunger that chilled my blood. The truth of the haven unraveled before us in a tapestry of horror. It was a feeding ground, a place where hope was harvested like a crop by those who had turned to darkness to survive. They worshipped the Titans, believing that by sacrificing others, they could appease the giants and carve out a semblance of existence beneath their notice. Our group was fractured in an instant, torn between the instinct to flee and the futile urge to fight. The creatures descended upon us, their humanity lost to a maddening desire to serve their gods, the Titans. I fought with a desperation I didn't know I possessed. Every strike driven by the memories of those we had lost, every cry a testament to the betrayal of our hopes. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of the leader, a figure who stood apart, orchestrating the madness with a calm that was more terrifying than the violence that surrounded him. Our eyes met, and in his gaze, I saw the depth of the abyss into which humanity had plunged. He was the architect of this horror, a man who had chosen to embrace the darkness rather than fight it. The battle raged, a blur of violence and terror, until a sudden, deafening silence enveloped us. The ground trembled, not with the footsteps of the Titans, but with something far more profound. The haven itself seemed to pause, the air charged with a preternatural anticipation. Then it appeared, a Titan, drawn by the crescendo of our despair. Its arrival was not the salvation we had been led to believe, but the culmination of the haven's purpose. The leader stepped forward, arms raised in worship, as the Titan's shadow fell over us, a darkness so complete it threatened to erase all that remained of our humanity. In that moment, as the Titan loomed, a revelation pierced the darkness. The true horror was not the giants that walked the earth, but the darkness within us, the willingness to sacrifice others in the vain hope of survival. The haven was a mirror, reflecting the monstrous depths to which humanity could sink. As the Titan moved, its indifference to the worship, it received a final damning judgment. The haven was consumed, not by salvation, but by annihilation. In its wake, a silence fell, a void where hope had once lived. I escaped, but the haven's lesson remained with me, a scar upon my soul. The world outside continued, indifferent to the horrors that had unfolded within the haven's walls. I walked away from the ruins, not as a survivor, but as a witness to the eclipse of humanity, a darkness that swallowed not just the light of hope, but the very essence of what it means to be human. That's a wrap for today on the Midnight Mystery. Hope you guys had as much fun as we did. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Oh, and don't be shy. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or any cool mystery ideas you want us to check out. Until next time, we'll see you in the next Midnight Mystery.